Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم Sheikh Sam.
Alhamdulillah. 1-0. MashaAllah.
أهلا بك. Hold on,
Sorry?
hold on a second. Just have to put the sound down a bit. Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Should we still do the session? Because I know you're watching the game and I'm watching the game as well.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's
Sure.
do it.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Mine's got a time lag on it, so I'm not sure. Bismillah, we'll do it, but you're going to talk more. I'm going to watch more.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll just do a few questions thoroughly then. Alhamdulillah. It's been ages. I've kind of like trying to. It's hard to get back into the swing of it.
You know, that's what held me up from restarting, because after Ramadan, I had so much other things going on. We didn't get straight back onto this, but I was thinking that we need to do it because we're a few days away from the Hijjah.
Yeah. Perhaps what would be really nice is before we, whilst we're waiting for a few questions to come in, if you could just say a few words, reminders about the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah and the correct day to do Eid.
Oh yeah, you want to have this debate, don't you?
Well, but yeah, it'd be good. But yeah, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, what we should be doing, can we cut our hair, can we cut our nails, all of that stuff would be quite good.
Yeah. So do you want to share something on that? I'm just trying to open up. Yeah, Bismillah, go for it. Tell them what you need to say.
No, I'm asking you. I'm trying to benefit from yourself as well. I'm going to be reading the questions whilst you're doing the introduction to Dhul Hijjah, inshallah.
And who's watching the game? Me or you?
I'm sure. I'm actually reading the questions at the moment. I'm behaving.
I'm trying to watch the game. I'm not behaving.
Yeah.
I'll
be honest. I'm not that interested in international football. It just doesn't do it for me.
Neither am I, but still. Semi-finals is something else. What are we looking at? Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وفقهنا إذا جهلنا وزدنا علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا يا كريم وبعد. جزاكم الله خير for all of those attending. I know for some of us, including myself, there's a game going on at the moment, so we may be otherwise distracted. Oh my word. So in the meantime, let's just start discussing some questions. Before looking at the questions, one of the reasons why I wanted to restart this, because we haven't done it since Ramadan for different reasons, is because we're coming up to the Hijjah, and a general point. I think it's said to be on Sunday or Monday, probably for Javed, Monday or Tuesday, the beginning of the Hijjah. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he spoke, there's no there's no days in the year where good deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than in these days. There are no days, and according to many of the Imams, these 10 days that we're going to move into, which culminates with Eid, are greater than the last 10 days of Ramadan. So it's time to get busy with worship. And especially because we don't have Hajj. For the vast majority, the bulk of the Ummah, there's no Hajj. 60,000 Muslims out of 2 billion. There's virtually no Hajj. So it requires us to be connected in our worship. And then, inshallah, as we go along, I'm not going to go through and as we go, I'm not going to go through at the beginning, but at the beginning, I just want to mention that I did a podcast this afternoon, and on there, we were discussing about the days of the Hijjah, and one of the ustads who was speaking there made a comment which is important. Just as for those who go into i'tikaf, you have a plan set out about the worship, the acts of worship you're going to do. In these 10 days, we all need to have a plan of the acts of worship that we're going to carry out within these days of the Hijjah. Khatam al-Quran, dua, prayers that we're going to do. Whatever acts of worship that we're going to do, have a plan of what to do within these days. Inshallah ta'ala, as we go through, maybe we'll have a discussion about Udhiyah or the Qurbani. And as Dr. Javed mentioned, common discussion about not cutting the nails and not cutting fasting in these days, the day of Arafah. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, we'll have another show like this next week as well, just in preparation for Eid as well. Inshallah, let's go through some questions. What we're going to start with? I think the first one, I'll give that to you, because you're one of these Sufis, aren't you? So I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, I think you'll need to weigh in on this. Music, there's ikhtilaf on music.
Sorry, Doc. Are you hearing me correctly or clearly, or am I not hearing you clearly?
Can you hear me now?
A bit broken. But I don't know if it's my connection that's weak, because quite often my connection's weak.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Bismillah. So I'm going to ask a question, because you're the city, and the question's being addressed to the city. It says, Assalamu alaikum, city. Is certain music allowed such as the ones that Sufis use?
Yeah, there's ikhtilaf on the issue of music across the madhab. There's one issue of musical instruments and what is allowed. In the Hanafi madhab, from what I've heard ulama talk about, in the Hanafi madhab, it's just the duff, right? So the duff is not the long thing that is very popular in Indian music, right? And a lot of fancy Asian people have in their houses as ornaments. It's not that, it's the actual frame drum. But even that, Sheikh, that's quite a recent fatwa, right? Relatively recent. The duff being permissible. Was that Sheikh Nabahani?
Sheikh Nabahani used Nabahani, Abdul Ghani Nabulsi.
Oh yeah, sorry, Abdul Ghani Nabulsi.
Abdul Ghani Nabulsi, he broadened it. He said the spiritual music, and in terms of what have effect on, he pretty much allowed most types.
But Imam Zayd mentioned once, because they spoke to him about music. So there's the issue of instruments, and some madhabs are a little bit more broad about what instruments they allow. But I remember in terms of, it doesn't have to be just in musical instruments. It can just be singing to a tune, and there's no doubt that tunes have an effect on not just people but animals as well. And that can be a positive thing if the hal is a good thing, or it can be a negative thing. And that's why when one teacher was asked about listening to popular music, if the lyrics were okay, and his response was, well, it just depends on the hal of the person who's bringing this music to you, because you're going to be affected by it.
I feel sorry on that. I mean, that's a fair point, that the hal of the musician, but also there's the hal of the music as well, because that discussion about what's allowed was more about spiritual music in terms of what has an effect. And when we're talking about common pop culture, where the lyrics are foul and everything that's associated with it is foul, and justifying by saying that there's electronic instruments that produce music, that's not the same. So everything around it's just all wrong. So Allahu Akbar, whether you can justify it on. But the question about that Sufis use.
Yeah, so in respect to sort of Sufi music, if we're not talking about the instrumentation, because that's just an issue of fiqh ikhtilaf, so you have to go to the fuqaha about that. Someone asked Imam Zayd a similar question, and he was talking about Tala al Badru alayna, what they sang when the Prophet ﷺ entered, and he goes, do you really think that they were just saying, as we're talking, Tala al Badru alayna min thaniyatil wada, they were singing it. Yeah, that's the nature and the nature of a lot of Eastern poetry, not just Arabic, Urdu poetry, Persian poetry, but definitely Arabic poetry, is that there is beat to it. There's a beat to it. There's a rhythm to it, and it is essentially like singing. It's not just said. It's not oration in that way. So there is a basis to that, even in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wallahu a'lam.
So I'll just quickly summarize that. So in the question, is certain musical outfit is the one that Sufis use? The general answer is yes. That as Sheikh Dr. Jabir mentioned, there are issues about instruments, and that's the of law. And generally the answer is yes. Fadal, Bismillah.
Right. So we got a question from Sister Aisha Iqbal. Assalamu alaikum. A question from a Muslim artist. Can I write Quranic ayahs when I'm on my menses? And secondly, is it permissible to use alcohol-based paints or inks on my work if they include scripture or something sanctified?
You know what the answer is to the first one?
Sorry?
Do you know the answer to the first one? A woman who's on her menses, as to whether she can write Quran.
I don't know the answer. Do you want me to guess?
Well, go on then. Let's do a bit of qiyas. Go on, quick.
I would say that they can write it as long as they don't touch it. If they can write it without touching it, then it's permissible.
There's a proof. There's the proof of your rank. Now, the reason why, the prohibition that comes in hadith, well, first of Quran, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. So there's a prohibition of touching it. And also reading, لا يقرأ القرآن حائض ولا جنوب. So there's a prohibition of reciting it. There's no prohibition of writing, but the problem then is in terms of how she writes it, she has to ensure that she's not touching. So as long as she ensures that she's not touching, and there are certain ways that are suggested by the fuqaha, but as long as she ensures she's not touching those words, then it will be permissible for her to do. The second one, I don't actually know the answer, and it's something that, it's an interesting question, and I'll look into that. Alcohol-based paints or inks, if they include scripture, something sanctified. I don't know the answer. So inshallah ta'ala, if the sister can ask that again next week, I'll try and find an answer.
We got a question from Junaid Azam, and again, common question. We've had it before, but it's worth reviewing it. There was a brother who passed away recently. I don't know whether he's referring to the same brother, but he left some young children. So it's got him thinking about income protection and critical illness cover. Is it halal to take those things out so that there's some provision for your children should anything happen?
That's essential life insurance system.
Yeah.
Which, from discussion with ulama, I remember speaking to Shaykh Muhammad Haddami, Mauritanian Maliki Mufti, and he said it's pretty much agreed across the madhabs that that's forbidden. So that's an insurance scheme, and that's generally forbidden by the ulama. So no, in terms of income protection, no. No, Allah, we'd have to look up ways of dealing with that.
I mean, it kind of makes you think about the way our social setup is. I mean, back in the days, families were bigger than just the nuclear family, and people were looked after, right, by the wider family and by the community. We've all kind of fragmented into these small nuclear families, and when tragedy like this strikes, there's no support or very little support for whoever's left.
Yeah.
Tariq wants to know what's happened to your Friday shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't restarted those since Ramadan, and I don't think that's going to restart again. Because, Mashallah, Jazakallah khair to Abdullah Kulim Masjid and to Brother Moomin. At the beginning of the lockdown, that was an ideal time after Jummah, everybody's at home. But now everybody's pretty much gone back. And so it's not really that feasible to continue that. But inshallah, ta'ala, we've got our brother Moomin here in Dr. Javed, and he's a comedian as well, so we're all good for the.
How dare Tariq's like bringing up rival shows? Rival shows.
So what we
MashaAllah.
what we're gonna have to get the red fez onto you. I think that's
Do you know what? Uh, there's a garment that my father-in-law brought me from Uzbekistan, and it's like multicolored. And I was tempted to wear it, but nowadays that kind of rainbow look is
yeah.
very suggestive. So I can't wear it anymore. I can't wear it anymore.
Why don't you believe in pride?
Hmm?
Don't
Pride
you
is haram. Pride is haram. Yeah, we know that. Okay, anyway, Tariq wants to know about what's the etiquette of speaking about the deceased. I've heard that complimenting the deceased is not encouraged.
I've not heard that. I mean, it's well known that speaking ill of the deceased is one of the worst types of ghiba that there is. But I've not heard that it's wrong to compliment the deceased. So Allah, I've not come across that. Have you come across that, Sheikh Doctor?
No, no.
No.
Uh, right, here's a good one. I like this one. Please give us some nasiha on how to keep committed to studying Arabic language and how one should stay on top of all the work. This sounds like one of your students.
I'm trying to figure out
on how one should stay on top of all of the work despite having other commitments. I feel as though I'm really not putting all my all into the language and losing the motivation. That's definitely one of your students.
I think it's one of those that I've killed off. I don't want to give a general answer to that. And genuinely, if this is students who's studying with us in Arabic Madrasa Greenswell Trust, genuinely as a serious point, please, at the moment we're having end of year meetings with students to discuss how they've fared during the year, and that meeting is important because I don't know about you, Dr. Java, but I remember that when we started our learning, we didn't have that same degree of guidance in terms of what's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And a lot of people now out there who are studying, you have that. So teachers who've gone through all of what you're trying to go through, who can take you through step by step. We didn't have that. It was a lot of it was hit and miss. So as a genuine point, because many people have a lot going on in their lives, and so they can't commit. Undoubtedly, what we do is so intense, and that's intentional. But some do fall away at the end of that. So it just means that you need to adjust. It's not to say you can't do it. It's just that this particular course is perhaps not suited to you. So you need to look at what's more suitable to you. And there's no one course that's the be all and end all. Every course and every teacher suits a particular type of student. So if you are a student at the Arabic Madrasa, please do send an email and we can have a chat about what's the best thing, just to look at what's catering particular studies to yourself. Wallahu a'lam. So I'm not going to give a generic answer to you because I think it's more specific.
This is a nice question. Faisal's talking about pointing your feet towards the Qibla. It's really strange because I don't know whether it's all Indo-Pak people, but it's really like a serious crime to point your feet towards the Qibla. But when you go to some mosques in this country, particularly Arab mosques, that's the way you work out where the Qibla is, by watching where they point their feet. And well, no, it's true. It's true. It's true. And so what's the kind of basis of that? Is it just a point of adab, or are we talking kufr?
MashaAllah.
It's been a while. It's been, I haven't done taqweer in 3 months.
Oh, MashaAllah. You really are Mr. All of it, aren't you? There's never
Yeah.
an excuse. طيب. ومن يعظم شعائر الله فإنها من تقوى القلوب. Whoever honors or reveres the symbols of Allah, that's a sign of piety from the heart. So that's the original dalil for it. And sha'air Allah, amongst them is the Qibla. The Qibla is one of the key symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, the fuqaha do mention this, and they actually state it's makruh tanzih. I think it's Imam al-Hasqafi and Durr al-Mukhtar, he mentions that it's makruh tanzih to have the soles of your feet facing towards the Qibla. And to highlight that, they even mention that if somebody's dying and you can't turn him to his right facing the Qibla, then have him on his back laying down with his head slightly up and his facing the Qibla. But if you can, just to bend his knees so that his soles don't face the Qibla. Because even at that moment when there's some difficulty, it's still an etiquette and that should try to be maintained, not to have the soles facing the Qibla. Wallahu alam. So there definitely is a basis. Quran gives us a general basis for it. The Fuqaha confirm that also applies to the Qibla. So it's not just a cultural practice. There's something from the Quran. There's something that's in the Sharia that confirms that. But then, as Doctor mentioned, there's extremes on both sides. Like some, particularly from Arab culture, just don't care about it. It's nothing. But others, like it's all like you cannot have your back towards the Qibla, you cannot have your feet towards others, you committed the worst of all crime. It's an issue of adab. Allahu Akbar. Naam Shaykh. Bismillah.
Okay. We've got. Let's do a few quick fire questions. Faisal's fired 4 at us. We're going to fire 4 answers back at him. Ruling regarding having dogs as pets. That's very common these days.
As far as I know, it's not permitted. As pets, as household pets, no.
Yeah.
As household pets, no, that's not permitted. Other pets like guard dogs or a guide dog for the blind and so on, that's allowed. But as a pet, no.
Yeah. Ariane Bank UK permissibility for mortgage home finance. If it is permissible, is it advisable to buy one house outright if you have the cash, or equally valid to buy 2 properties using their halal bank mortgage?
If you have the cash to outright buy, then buy. Because all of these alternatives, like they're bending it as much as possible. So if you can, then definitely buy outright.
And is it okay to outsource Eid al-Adha sacrifice arrangement?
Sheikh Jawad, do you agree with that?
Which one? The Ryan Bank?
Yeah, if you have the opportunity to buy, then buy.
Yeah, I mean, it's my inclination, but it's too far out of my wheelhouse. These things are too complicated. I think even like in terms of the scholars, I was told when you speak to one of the Molanas in Dewsbury, who has close links with Mufti Taqi Usmani, someone asked him about all of these halal mortgages where his name was thrown. I don't know whether they do it anymore, but in those days his name was thrown around left, right, and center. And his comment was that Maulana Taqi says there's not much difference between the haram mortgage and the halal mortgage. Right, that was his assessment after all of that. But my understanding of these financial things, and obviously the Sharia aspect of it is too weak to really have a comment.
Well, no, but without a doubt, if you can buy one outright, then I'll definitely do it. Yeah.
Can you send it to another country using family abroad to make the arrangements? Eid al-Adha sacrifice.
Yeah, and not only can you, mashallah, especially like the dog, mashallah, carnivores, just live day and night on meat. And there's people across the world who don't eat meat. That thing about 1:30, normally was in a time when people didn't eat meat that much. So now if we're looking at it from the general perspective of Sharia, I think there's a greater importance of having or of sending it abroad. Wallahu a'lam. So definitely outsource it and send it to other places. Wallahu a'lam. At the same
And
time, bearing in mind that there are people here in the UK who don't eat a proper meal.
there's another actually connected one from someone else on. Can you do qurbani for, this is from Sister Aisha, can you do qurbani for another living person? And if you can, do you need to get their permission first? So a student wants to do it for their teachers. Do they have to tell the teacher?
So it's teachers. Do you say teachers?
So yeah, so somebody wants to do qurbani in the
Allowed
name
to-
of their teacher, right, or their sheikh, right? Do they have to? Can they do that? And do they have to seek that person's permission to do it, or can they just do it on the quiet?
Where you need to seek permission is where you're fulfilling a wajib for somebody who has to do it. So somebody has a requirement that it's wajib upon them because they meet the criteria of zakah, which is a requirement with the Hanafis, then it needs confirmation from that person. If you're doing it to give the reward, then it doesn't need a confirmation. So if the student wants to do for the teacher, sheikh, or parents, or anybody, then there's no need for confirmation.
And Faisal's last question was Nafil fast. What's the ruling concerning making up for breaking a Nafil fast?
That's yours. That's just
Wajib to, once you start a Nafil, whether it's prayer or fasting, that moment you start it, it's wajib for you to complete it. Even if you break that one, you have to, it's wajib for you to fulfill that act.
Yeah, it's wajib to do qada of any nafil that's been broken. No.
This is definitely your question. Can you clarify the ruling on having multiple piercings? How many piercings do you have, Sheikh?
Behave yourself. Well, first of all, is that a man or a woman who's asking?
We don't know. It's anonymous, and can we make those distinctions anymore? Even
Something about that. I saw something before about third gender.
yeah, that's we'll come to that. We'll come to that in Arabic. Yeah. So piercings. Let's assume it's a woman. Inshallah, let's have husn adhan and assume it's a woman.
Just to be clear on that, see, piercings is essentially for earrings or any other type of rings, and that's jewelry with tajmeel to beautify a person. A man, that's not for a man. A man, jewelry is not for a man. And particularly piercing, like when you look in the books of fiqh, they stated that when you've got like a bint, a young girl who gets an ear piercing, now obviously that piercing itself is harmful, but it's been allowed for her because of the need for a woman, for beauty of a woman. There's a need there. But there is no such need for a man. So that's the first point. And then secondly, for a woman, like multiple piercings, that's essentially based on the urf. That's essentially based on the urf, like normal practice. ما رآه المسلمون حسنا فهو عند الله حسن. And generally the practice across the Muslim world is that it's an ear or perhaps a nose piercing. Now the multiple piercings, يعني عادة الفاسقات الكافرات. That's the way of unbelieving women. That's the way, and they're not. We don't base ahkam al-sharia upon the word. We base it on the best type of people. Allahu A'lam.
Okay. Right. So let's get. This is another topical one. Asjid is asking, in Hanafi fiqh, is it permissible to pray Isha 30, 40 minutes after Maghrib during this period where there's perpetual twilight. So, like
Yeah,
most places, it's May, July, May, August.
I think August, isn't it, when it reappears when you have an Isha. So yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Is it like 30, 40 minutes, or can you do less than that, providing you keep a gap?
provided you keep it up. Yeah,
Okay.
as a general thing, as a general thing, it's not an issue what kind of it's a general advice that's given for those who are able to pray the normal standard of like an hour or so after, then maintain that. But those who genuinely face difficulty in doing so, then yeah, then there is validity in that.
Right, spiritual abuse. Let's come up. What is that now? Yeah, what's the nasiha you'd give to a victim of spiritual abuse, especially if it has weakened their faith?
Tfaddal. Can you say something, then I'll say something? Because that's a problem. That's a
I think
problem.
I think I think there's no doubt there's a problem about spiritual abuse. However, there's also a problem about the terminology. It's become very, very broad, and it really depends on the spiritual abuse. He shouted at me,
Yeah,
right? And there's spiritual abuse, which is unmentionable stuff. And the important thing to realize is no person, regardless of who they are above the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you've got to look to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the Prophet sallallahu, to the companions and their lives, and the people who have proven themselves, who've gone on before, and look at the guidance there. And anyone who strays from that, that's the problem. There, we make an emotional link between people who we perceive to be religious and people who and the religion itself, and that's where the kind of problem comes. When they let us down, it affects our faith, and we have to kind of break that link. One of my teachers, the first thing he said was, you have to learn the Sharia, because you have to be able to recognize the moment I stray from the Sharia. You have to be able to have the confidence to not follow. And we're emotional creatures by nature, right? But we need to overrule that by having a deep understanding of religion, right? And I think coining it as spiritual abuse is problematic. I don't like that term at all, because it brings religion into disrepute, and we've seen how it's happened in other communities. But calling it abuse, definitely, right? It doesn't matter who you're abused by, right? It's wrong. But when you call it spiritual abuse, it begins to create a connection to religion, and I feel deeply uncomfortable with that, because what they're doing is not part of the religion.
Jazakallah khair. Um, I pretty much agree with everything that Dr. Javed has said there. But just to add there, like in every walk of life, you're always going to have these fake charlatans who hijack it for their own purposes. They do exist. They exist more now than any other time, and that's primarily because of the ignorance of people. People are strayed so far from their religion that any fakes can come and mislead people. Um, so although there are fakes out there, uh, people themselves have a lot of blame within all of this. Like as Dr. Javed mentioned, that if someone's firmly grounded in their understanding of religion, like, like in that your essentials of religion, you know what's right from wrong in religion, and you're not going to have a woman where some sheikh comes and starts saying it's all good that you be alone with me and touch me and so on. Like there are certain boundaries that can't be crossed, and then if you say no, it doesn't matter the sheikh right or wrong, then there's a problem with you at that point. Now you have no understanding whatsoever of religion. You're relying upon people absolutely, when the first is Allah and the Messenger. Um, there has to be some responsibility taken by people themselves within all of this, and then after that, yeah, even the best can be led astray. Um, but if you're sincere and genuine, and you turn towards people of guidance, they'll point you towards those who truly you can give your heart and soul towards, and to guide you to Allah. and His Messenger. Just that last thing on there, when you say that it's had an effect on your faith, people, and unfortunately, it's a problem now with people that people's faith are so not so easy, but they're affected. It can be affected easily. People should always remember that your relationship with Allah and His Messenger, irrespective, doesn't, in the end, doesn't matter how heinous a crime the Shaykh has committed. It's still about Allah and the Messenger. It's not the Shaykh. If the Shaykh is turned out to be false, and he's not really pointing you to Allah and His Messenger, it doesn't change Allah and His Messenger. And that's what Dr. Javed mentioned before there. And that's why it's a problem calling it religious. I was thinking religious abuse, because spiritual abuse is more tied into tariqas and spiritual paths. But when you bank the whole of your religion on one individual after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you are going to have some problems. Allahu Akbar.
This is a question that you were desperate to answer. What is the place of the third gender in the Sharia?
I have no idea what that is. What is the third gender?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, maybe the questioner can sort of expand on that. I'm not sure what that means.
I'll share the hadith that we read yesterday. We were reading I'lam al-Anam, Sharh Bulugh al-Maram, and the things in Bukhari, where the Prophet he said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْمُخَنِّثِينَ لا نعم المخنثين من الرجال والمترجلات من النساء أخرجوهم من بيوتكم. Allah curses effeminate men and masculine women, remove them from your homes. And so all of the madness that's going on at the moment with genders and so on, the Prophet clearly said Allah curses all of that behavior. And this wasn't just cross gender. This is that men who behave effeminate and women who behave in a masculine manner. أخرجوهم من بيوتكم. Remove them from your home and the curses of people. So what this gender, I don't know if it's a serious question or not, but the Prophet was clear. These are mal'ooneen. These are people who curse by Allah and His Messenger.
You got another question about Surah Safat. Allah Ta'ala says, Salam ala Nuhin fil alameen. So alameen mentioned here, but with Sayyidina Ibrahim is not mentioned, or Sayyidina Musa or Haroon or any of the other prophets. So have the ulama mentioned any hikmah regarding this?
As you were talking before, I was trying to find, I've opened up to try and find them. Guaranteed they would have mentioned wisdom, but I haven't read it. So inshallah, I'll try and come back with an answer to that.
Oh, okay. Anonymous is asking, we haven't done any anonymous questions, or maybe we've done one or two. I was told someone had performed black magic on me and the family. I asked the Shaykh to tell me how to cure this. The Shaykh told me to listen or read Surah Baqarah every day, Ayatul Kursi, 4 Quls. Nothing advised was anything to worry about, excluding the fact that Shaykh asked for my mother's full name and mine. I've been told that this could be a cause for concern. Can you advise what the correct process for overcoming black magic is, and what can I do now?
First of all, I'm not going to say anything, because dealing with something as evil as that is a very specific skill. It's an expertise that some have. Again, it's something similar to what was mentioned before. There's a lot of fakes out there who deal with this, who don't really have much knowledge, and they've utilized it as a business opportunity. But there are some real raqeen. So if you're able to find somebody who has expertise in this, somebody who's known to fear Allah and His Messenger, and then go to that person. You're right there. Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayatul Kursi, 4, because they're the standard which actually advises from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even the mother's full name and your full name is not necessarily a concern or a concern, because that may just be the person checking to confirm as to whether there is anything that's done. And generally that's how the checks take place. Allahu alam. But I'm not going to say anything more. If you know he's a genuine Iraqi, like a healer of black magic, and inshallah, then go with him. Allah.
Is it possible for someone who's previously looked at haram things in the bad old days to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their dream?
Absolutely, there's no reason to say no, especially and particularly because Ashab al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some of them before they believed, they lived the worst of all lives. Yet despite that, they were exposed to Nur al-Nubuwah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he shone the light of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam upon them. So there's no reason why that can't be extended to those who've seen haram. They've made sincere tawbah. Somebody's repented is like somebody's not committed a sin before. So there's no reason why not. Allahu Akbar.
Kafrene. Tariq's asking about Kafrene. Is it permissible?
There's some methods that don't allow it. Abu Hanif in particular allows it. Any type of Rene or whey powder, provided it's not pig. That's it.
What should one do if in Salah you forget which part of the ruku you are in?
What does that mean? Which part of the ruku is it?
I don't know. It might mean which rak'ah you're in.
Rak'ah. That's an
Yeah, I would say it might be just be that's what it's intended. But what part of the ruku you're in, I don't know what that means.
And the question is, Surah just confirmed, did you mean which rak'ah of the prayer you're in, or which part of the...
We'll come back to that. We'll give him time to help us. Someone's asking if I'm Motu.
I think
yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You can sleep. You can sleep well at night. Okay. I'm in getting married. I run into issue communicating with some sisters where we ask each other what we're looking for in marriage through a mutual, which allows for less waswasa from shaitan. Some practicing sisters have said that they find this approach difficult and ask to meet without a third person to get to know, which obviously I don't believe to be needed. However, in practice, when I have gone ahead and done everything through a mutual, so many pieces of information go missing and critical points have been miscommunicated. I think I understand the limit, Sheikh, but is there any nasiha you can give, as I'm trying my best to do the right thing, but it doesn't seem to be getting me anywhere?
Allah, Sheikh, answer the question.
I don't know.
I'll just give a quick answer. Those so-called practicing sisters who are dating these guys that they're considering a marriage, because that's essentially what it ends up as being. Don't listen to that advice. Hold firm to the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. You hold firm to the boundaries that Allah sets. Allah will sort it out. So you don't need to worry about it. There may be some complications. There may be some problems. They can be ironed out. But don't start feeling that because of that you need to start bending the rules of Allah and His Messenger.
But I don't know, maybe I'm misreading this. I'm getting the impression that they're not meeting the sisters at all. So like, for instance, where you might come to the family home, mom and dad are there, other people are there, and you see them, right, and maybe have a conversation with them. But I get the feel, maybe it's just the way I'm reading it, I get the feeling that they're not even meeting the sisters, and they're just at all. At some stage, it's ideal to meet them, right?
For sure, yeah, for sure.
At least on the wedding day, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I had a question recently, and it just a lot of these things can be done in one visit, right?
Yeah,
Once you've got some very basic details from your go-between, just call them round to the house,
yeah.
make some tea, make some samosas, right? Yeah, and then as long as there's other people around, that's an opportunity. Because it's frightening for the sisters as well. You know, they're going to commit their whole life to Southern Giza, and they probably want to check him out first.
Yeah, طيب.
Yeah, but not alone. Not alone. All right. Okay. So we've got a clarification. Talk about hermaphrodites.
Yeah, that was the third gender. Hermaphrodites are not a third gender, though. Hermaphrodites is is where it's not clear as to what their gender is. That's what hermaphrodites is. That's al-khuntha al-mushkil. Allahu a'lam. So they're either male or female, and so just about determining which gender they are. And then you've got a lot of detail on that within the books of Sharia. It's about where they urinate from. The other one is primarily where they urinate from. The other one's considered to be some type of deformity. Allahu a'lam.
Sister Amna's asking about in prayer, does a woman's whole arm from hand to elbow touch the ground, or is it slightly raised in the Hanafi madhab?
Well, the sunnah for a woman is that the whole of her arm from her hands down to her elbows is pressed to the ground. The hadith forbids it. The Hanafis consider that to apply to men and not to women. So there's nothing about it raising it for الصبح وبدا من طلعته. نعم
One
شيخ.
of one of my friends has been waking up with scratches on his back for months now. Is this to do with jinn? What can he do?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't. So refer that to somebody who has some knowledge of that, like some Raqi, somebody who deals with that. I have no idea. Wallahu a'lam.
What dua would you recommend for someone who's struggling with work?
اللهم أغنني بحلالك عن حرامك اللهم اكفني بحلالك عن حرامي وأغنني بفضلك عمن سواك اللهم اكفني بحلالك عن حرامك. Allah, give me sufficiency within your halal from your haram. وأغنني بفضلك عمن سواك, and enrich me through your grace from all of this, all of them.
Okay, Isha timing. Do you follow 18-degree method for Isha Sahari? What's your opinion on it?
Abu
What's
Hanif,
your opinion?
mine,
Yours.
like me,
Well, the Haruni madhab.
Um, Abu Hanifa's opinion is that it's when the bayab, when the clear night sky disappears and it becomes a black sky, and that depends upon where you are, but generally that's considered 18 degree, and that's the fatwa of the madhab. So yeah, that's a fatwa of the madhab. The other opinion, the early time, is also an accepted view in the madhab. It may not be as strong, but there are some who give fatwa on that view. So yeah, generally we'll go with the later time for Aisha, but the early time is an acceptable view as well. Allah.
So connected to Isha time. I mean, Astrid's got a follow-up question. Talking about the gap for praying Isha, 30 minutes or even less, assuming one has sort of he says a genuine concern. Is this opinion from the great Imams or later scholars? Where do we take this opinion from?
It's all on the basis that there's no Aisha. And so everything that's taking place now is taqdeer al-waqt. It's all just setting the time. So it's the view of contemporary ulama, just to make it easy for people, and particularly for those. And there's nothing in the books of the madhab that says 30 degrees or 30 minutes or 15 minutes or so on. It's all just fixing a time. And so the general view is based upon a standard time, and even though that's an opinion that's adopted, that's an opinion that's adopted from elsewhere, but it's become an accepted practice with the Hanafis. So if Asjid is asking like 30 minutes, where's that from? These are just approximations given by our contemporary ulama. Allahu A'lam.
So Surah's confirmed that what they meant was they forget which rak'ah they're in the prayer.
Fadal, do you want to answer that one? Standard textbook question.
Just you go with the number that you are definite you've done. So if you're definite you've done one, but you're not sure about two or three, you go with the fact you've done one. If you're definite you've done two, but you're not sure whether you've done three or four, you go with two.
Yeah. So the standard answer, first, I mean, that's the answer is correct. That was given there. But the first point being that if it's the first time it ever happens to you, your prayer is invalid. First time it ever happens, your prayer is invalid. If it's happened more than once, as Dr. Javed mentioned, um, you go with what you seem to think is most likeliest, and you base the prayer upon that. If you have no opinion, you have no idea which it is, then go with the low number and do sajda sahw at the end of the prayer. Allah.
All right. Sheikhs, are women allowed to confer with each other on personal matters if you speak metaphorically about issues?
Depends what they mean about personal matters. If they're talking about sexual matters, if that's what's meant, then no. Like personal sexual details between husband and wife, then no. If it's other matters, even then there's an amana. فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله. Righteous, God-fearing women are those who protect their husbands in their absence. So there has to be a lot of care that you don't reveal family secrets. Things that happen in the home should stay in the home. They shouldn't be shared with others. Allahu A'lam.
This is a tough one. Anonymous is asking, my husband doesn't read Salah. Whenever I remind him, he says he will. He doesn't though. It's starting to really get to me now, and that he doesn't pray. I will always care about him and his akhirah, but I always say that I care about him and his akhirah, but it hasn't changed. It's been 3 years. What should I do?
Keep on praying for them. Don't give up on him. Just keep on making dua for him, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open his heart. And even if you be the worst of people, because somebody who doesn't pray is amongst the worst of all people, inshallah, through the blessings of your dua, don't hound him, don't pressure him. He knows what he needs to do, and inshallah ta'ala, that'll come eventually.
I mean, some of the most devout people I know were people who didn't pray at all for years and years and years. But I don't know what changed them, but they changed. Alhamdulillah. Where was that one? Did we answer the 18 degree? We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
18, right. Permissibility about making niyyah to do good actions, so extra nafil worship, etc. If Allah answers personal du'as.
I think that sounds like another. That almost sounds like a vow that a person is making, and it's not encouraged. The Prophet's nice and discouraged that. That if Allah, if you do this for me, then I'll do such and such. It's not encouraged, but it's permissible. The key thing that's mentioned by the fuqaha is that if you do make such a commitment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it becomes wajib that you fulfill it. Allahu A'lam.
How do you identify fake peers or charlatans?
By referring to Imams of guidance, there are known Imams of guidance, and Imams of guidance are not like the common village clowns telling you that these are great. No, it's ulama telling you. When ulama, rabbaniyun, when people of knowledge, people of position in the ummah, they're telling you that you can take from this person, that's when you know. there's also a key tradition of Ahlul Sunnah. Transmitted about the years in which Allah has preserved for this ummah the ways of guidance in Aqidah, in Sharia, in the spiritual way. That's the tradition. There should be no break from that tradition. There should be no break from that tradition whatsoever.
So, following on from the spiritual abuse question, so asking, how are we supposed to follow Islamic tradition of learning and that relationship between teacher and student, one-to-one guidance a student receives when we're not able to have these relationships with our teachers or even find good company as we're often advised?
The Sahabiyat, the female companions, did not have that close personal relationship with the Prophet as the male companions did. There wasn't that close relation, and that's what female students need to understand. They need to understand that you're not going to have that like that close time. Like, for example, brothers will come and they'll spend time sat privately and late into the night with their sheikh and so on. By the very nature of that Sharia, there's no way around that. There's no way around.
Did even all the male companions have that relationship with the Prophet?
Accept the point. So that's an accepted point that not all the males had that. There was a close inner circle with the Prophets. That will happen with all shuyukh and with all ulama, and just by the nature of that female, she's not going to have that, and she needs to understand that she can't build that relationship. But that doesn't change the fact. That doesn't change the fact that the relationship there is there just by you being, just that you taking from him generally. You give bay'ah to a sheikh, you never see him, you have a connection there. You're not going to be with him a sheikh has a following of tens of thousands, and every single murid wants to be sat with the sheikh 24 hours a day. That's not real. That's not real. And so practically for most, it's not possible. But more so for females, they have to understand that there has to be maintained distance, but that does not stop you from taking guidance to take a learning from. It doesn't need to be personal to that level. Allah.
Isn't there's a book, I think it's called Darqawi Letters,
yeah,
where essentially the Shaykh is giving tarbiyah, but just through letters. There's no meeting, there's no one-to-one sessions. It's just through meeting. And then Sheikh Dabbar, okay, he had a relationship with his Shaykh, but really his openings happened after his Shaykh passed away. This one-to-one thing, I think it's a modern notion that we have to have this one-to-one contact, otherwise he can't be my sheikh. He can't give me guidance.
Some of our teachers, they mention just the mere fact that you're in the dua of your sheikh and your connection. He'll make a dua for you. That's you're connected through that. You want personal advice about everything that's going on in your life. That's not usually that's not how it works. So, Michelle, we're going to finish with that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Inshallah, we'll try and have a session next time where maybe there's more things around Eid and around Udhiyah and other issues. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وجزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.